Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is a place of amazing beauty, culture, struggle, people, and strong politics. Côte d'Ivoire is the French phrase for the Ivory Coast. Côte d'Ivoire is on the edge of West Africa, bordering the Atlantic. The capital of Côte d'Ivoire is Yamoussoukro, but it is not the biggest or the most locally important. It has 242,744 people that live in the vicinity, and it covers about 1,400 square miles. Since 1998, the population has almost doubled. Auguste Demine is the governor of this district. It is located near the middle of the country. The population is 22,400,835. The area in square kilometers is 322,463. The date of independence is August 8th, 1960. The language is French. French was left over from when the French were in power in the Ivory Coast during the 19 and 1800s. The religions in the Ivory Coast are mainly Muslim and Christian, but there is an array of native religions that have died out. The climate in Ivory Coast is tropical, mountainous, and warm near the coast, but the further it gets away from the coast, it gets to be semi-arid, which means there are 3 seasons: dry and hot, wet and hot, and cool and wet. Bouaké is the second largest city in Côte d'Ivoire, with a population of 775,300 according to the 2005 census. But it has not always been that low. That number is only due to the Civil War. In 1998, the population was 1.2 million. Its water comes from the Ivory Coast's largest lake that is 50 kilometers away. It is located in the central part of Côte d'Ivoire. The Ivory Coast natural resources include natural gas, petroleum, diamond, magnesium, iron, copper, gold, nickel, clay, cocoa beans, and palm oil. Côte d'Ivoire's primary crops include yams, haricot, rice, and plantains. The main industries in the Ivory Coast include agriculture, mining, and manufacturing, in that order. The main exports are cocoa paste, cocoa beans, and oils. The country's currency is a franc, which was left over by the French colonization. The franc's exchange rate to the US dollar is 0.00197727. The type of government is a presidential representative democracy. The government in the Ivory Coast is unstable, with an internal fight for power, but 3 major political landmarks in the Ivory Coast are Alassane Ouattara, Laurent Gbagbo, and Félix Houphouët-Boigny. Some political parties are the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, Ivorian Popular Front, Ivorian Worker Party, Rally of the Republicans, and The Resistance. Isto Deji is one of the most well-known music artists from Côte d'Ivoire. He blends music from traditional style with pop to create a style called Zigbalithé. Many of the native musics involve drums and polyrhythm. One drum used in many songs is a djembe, which is now recognized worldwide. Many of the songs also include amazing dances with lots of costumes. Many Ivory Coast restaurants are open air. That means that the tables are outside. Common snacks include fried bananas, fish, and yams. Ivorians wash their fingers by dipping them into a basin of water. Ivorians also drink a lot of beer. Peanuts are used in many ways, for eating, spicing, and cooking. Kavassa is a common ingredient. Kavassa is a woody shrub. The overall diet contains a lot of grains and tubers. Mandarins, mangoes, passion fruits, soursop, and coconut make up the bulk of the fruit in Ivorians' diet. Traditional clothing for the Ivory Coast is long, colorful garbs that cover your whole body for both men and women. There are more than 60 indigenous languages and many religions from the thousands of years before the French colonized Côte d'Ivoire. Over the past 20 years, there have been 2 civil wars in Côte d'Ivoire. Some of the reasons that led people to be angry and rebel against the government was a president that had been in the presidential position for much longer than he should have, economic depression, racial tensions, and unemployment. Economical depression was caused from the scramble from Africa, where the French took over Côte d'Ivoire for about 200 years. The racial tensions were that many people were not originally native to the Ivory Coast and had immigrated, and there were tensions between who was Ivorian and who could be a citizen and who wasn't and couldn't be a citizen. The unemployment was due to the economic state. Many urbanized Ivorians were forced to move back to the country and found that land taken over already. The first civil war began in 1995 when there was a group of foreign ethnicity people killed in a riot. For the next 7 years, racial tensions, which were now violent, rose. The country passed laws and gave governmental help, but there was no way to stop the inevitable, a civil war. At this time, the president was Laurent Gbagbo. On 2002, September 19th, the fighting started. The fight was for who could have right due to nationality at the beginning. In the immediate afterwards, several political figures were killed. The rebels took base at Bouaki. Côte d'Ivoire sent a distress call to the UN and to France. France sent 2,500 soldiers to aid the fight. France played a big role in the war, being the Ivory Coast's #1 ally. A rebel group called New Forces held roughly 60% of the country. Many soldiers that would fight in the Côte d'Ivoire army joined the rebel forces, so the rebels were very well armed. The madness came to an end on October 17th when a ceasefire was signed. Even though the ceasefire was signed on October 17th, it took until November 18th for rebel groups to meet with the government in France to discuss treaties and negotiations. The first negotiation meeting failed and the ceasefire ended on January 6th when at least 30 people were killed when the rebels attacked French troops. After the fighting started up again, it lasted until 2005 after Western allies withdrew. On April 3rd, 2005, rebels and the government met in hopes of drafting a peace agreement. The meeting was not entirely successful, but heavy-duty weapons were being withdrawn from front lines by April 21st. After that, things cooled down. Not to say that there was no violence, but it was kept at a minimum by the UN Guard that stretched across the middle of the country and kept general peace. Now came a 2-year waiting period, in which the war was technically still going. This was because the date of the presidential vote kept on being moved back until it was eventually set on October 2007. Then the country reunited under new control. The president maintained some control and handed some over to the rebel forces leader named Laurent Gbagbo. The war was over. There was a second civil war. This civil war sprung up from a presidential vote that took place in 2010. Both competitors claimed they were the victor and both swore into office. The 2 candidates were Asana Oto and Laurent Gbagbo. The civil war sprung up around who won, enraged the country, and continues to this day.